Here, we're on YouTube now, so what does that mean? There's big Syracuse news, of course, and it's usually bad.
Yeah, Kamari Lands just had to make this an epic first YouTube episode. We've got takes on Kamari Lands coming right up.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into the Locked On Syracuse podcast. Tyler, Aki, and Tim Leonard find us everywhere, and we're free everywhere. That's the nice thing about the Locked On Syracuse podcast. And there's a new destination for you now. It is on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to the Locked On Syracuse YouTube page. I guess that's what the kids are doing now, Tim, to get them into podcasts and stuff like that. So tell your kids, if you've got Orange fan kids, just have us up on the Locked On YouTube, on the Locked On Syracuse YouTube page, I should say. Also, we're in all your traditional spots as well, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, all that good stuff. And you can find us on Twitter at @LO_Syracuse. But Tim, Kamari Lands, I mean, he's decommitting from Syracuse. He told Mike Waters that they're still among his top schools, but we'll see how the whole thing plays out. But when I look at what's happened here, this was literally the most normal way to leave the school, right? Just flat out decommit. And it feels like a new venture for all of Syracuse fans now because they're kind of like, whoa, like, I don't know what this is. But meanwhile, this is the most normal way to leave a school. Kamari Lands is doing it. Unfortunately for Orange fans, it is Syracuse.
The only thing that was unnormal about the way he announced it is he didn't put hashtag respect my decision in his little tweet.
Exactly.
I know that's your favorite thing. I was shocked.
Hashtag no interviews, yeah.
Right. But no, it's a bummer. I mean, I don't know how shocked you were by it. I was pretty shocked. And I know a lot of fans were tweeting at us like, not that shocking. Could have seen it coming. I guess in hindsight.
Hold on. We have to discuss this. We have to hash this out right now. When this stuff happens, because for Syracuse fans, you feel like a seasoned vet at this point, right?
Yep.
You're just expecting it at this time.
Unfortunately, yeah.
That's the way it is now. What is your favorite type of Syracuse Twitter when this stuff happens? All right, I've got 3 options for you. Okay.
Oh boy.
We've got number 1, the Boeheim needs to hang it up crowd. The game's passed him by. We've got number 2, knew this was coming. How could you be so naive? And number 3, you know, this is actually a good thing that we're losing a superstar recruit because player X, who is 99% of the time worse, can now join the team.
Yes, Chris Bunch, bring him on. Yeah, that's the whole talk now. I think my favorite fan is this was not a shocker.
How did you not have sources on this? Like,
I've been boots on the ground
on this for 10 months now.
Which, yes, in hindsight, Kamari Lands kind of committed out of the blue. No one saw that coming. Maybe a little bit of a red flag.
Much like Dior.
Right. Yep. Unfortunately, now that's 2 in this class. Also, he never visited the campus, I believe. Mm-hmm. Never officially, at least. Kind of a red flag. You don't usually commit without visiting, but he did say it was his dream school. He said Carmelo Anthony was his favorite player. So it's another one of those guys that I guess all these kids, it's their dream school when they commit, and we shouldn't take too much from him. I think he tweeted, we were joking about this with Goody, that it was 1,000% committed when it happened. So
may have been an extra 0 or 2 in there.
Right. It's just the nature of recruits nowadays. I feel like you can't get through a cycle, and maybe this is just Syracuse, but I don't think it's just Syracuse. It might be a little bit more at Syracuse recently, but it feels like they can't get through a cycle, or anyone can't get through a cycle without one player decommitting, and that's probably the nature of how it's going to be going forward.
And especially in this cycle, too, because there was so much changing. This is going to be, and it's not just Syracuse, across the country, it was going to be a very, very difficult cycle to recruit because of the fact that you've got so many changes in the college game. Transfer portal, number 1. Number 2, you've got name, image, likeness. Number 3, you have the global pandemic going on that's granting players extra years of eligibility. That stuff is you're going to see the ripple effect now, I think, for the next probably year or so from all of this. And with Kamari Lands, one of the things that he told Mike Waters is, I want the opportunity to be recruited with NIL in the picture, which to that I would say NIL has always kind of been in the picture, I feel like, for anyone in the class of 2022. Yeah. Even if it wasn't explicitly said, you knew what you were getting into. And I would imagine a number of coaches have brought it up even before it was officially passed by the NCAA.
I sure hope so. Like, if you were a Syracuse coach, I hope that you were planning and preparing for it as much as you possibly could. What I took from that Mike Waters article was he's interested in playing pro. And there was one quote in there in particular.
Turned down an overtime league offer.
He did, yeah. And maybe he's starting to get those offers and he's realizing that's a realistic possibility. He had a great peach jam. He's a great player. Yeah. And for anyone that's taken the, oh, no, he wasn't all that good anyway, we'll be fine without him. Like, let's be honest.
No,
if he was still committed, you'd still be hyping him up. It hurts. I mean, this class now goes from, solid to, it's a solid class still, but it's kind of your typical Syracuse class, the two guys they have. Kamari Lands took it to another level, unfortunately.
If he were coming to Syracuse, let's fast forward a year, all right, from now, and if he were still in the fold, people would be talking about him the same way they're talking about Benny Williams right now. They would be, because that's skill-wise, it's a similar ranking, offer sheet, and profile, and the ability that Kamari Lands has. And I just feel like, I don't know about you, but it almost felt quiet while Syracuse had a verbal commitment from Kamari Lands. And what I mean by that is the fact that it didn't really feel like he was a part of the class for some reason. Because it felt like you were on a venture to always get the next guy. And maybe that's the result of being the first guy in the class. I don't know. But with Benny Williams, it always kind of felt like, oh, there's buzz about Benny. And even in classes prior, when you think of like Kadari Richmond, oh, there's a lot of buzz around Kadari. And maybe it's because they got to campus and they got the people like Rothstein tweeting about them and all that stuff. But I think about Kamari, and it just kind of felt very quiet the entire time. So maybe we should have seen this coming. Syracuse crowd was right. Maybe they were right.
I think that is another sort of reasoning why that crowd exists, because you look at his Twitter, his Instagram, wasn't a whole lot of Syracuse buzz. You didn't hear the way that Justin Taylor and Copeland were all in it together. They wanted to play together. They now are teaming up at IMG together. There was like some sort of pride in being Syracuse commits together. No one really brought up, oh, I want to play with Kamari. And then also he moves out to Arizona, or he's going to play at Hillcrest Prep from Indiana. I mean, I don't know if that means a ton, but looking back on it now, there were kind of some red flags there that people were probably picking up on. It still was a bit of a shock to get that news whenever it came out and see it on your Twitter feed. And I don't think any fan would say otherwise, right? I mean, it was still,
I agree,
despite knowing that stuff.
Did you see his Instagram after it all happened? His Instagram story, it was just like post after post after post of all the news sources breaking the news that he's decommitting.
Oh, really?
I don't think I've ever seen that. I feel like most people, when there is a move like this has a negative connotation to it. You know what I mean? Especially because like you're hurting a fan base, even though for him personally, it may be the best move. And at the end of the day, that's what matters the most. But to the ether, it has, especially his following too, for the most part, you'd imagine it's a large Syracuse contingency. It's got a negative connotation. And then I looked through his Instagram story and it was just post after post after post of like eye emojis. And like, then there comes a Kansas offer and all that stuff. And it was like, whoa, like that was fast. That was really, really fast. How quickly he moved on and how quickly he was very open to sharing it and letting people know that he was no longer a member of the Syracuse Orange. So I found that a little odd, but you know what? You do you.
Shout out to Bill Self in Kansas. They swooped right in there with that offer right away. And
they knew it was coming.
I'm sure there was some NIL attached to it. The one thing I'll say, you brought up how he's like Benny, and I totally agree. If he was coming to Syracuse, we'd be hyping him up. Maybe one and done, all that talk that we're giving Benny, because he's that good of a player. He was great in Peach Jam. He's a borderline McDonald's All-American if you go off rankings right now. His offer sheet is a little odd, though. I guess the Kansas offer adds a little bit of gravitas to it, but looking back at it and thinking, okay, maybe where is he going now after I saw the news? It's DePaul, it's Texas Tech, Xavier, Louisville, Miami of Ohio. I guess some of that is also he committed to Syracuse pretty early. So maybe other teams just never really got in on him because they knew he was already taken, basically.
All right, we're going to get into a little more Kamari Lands stuff, including what this says about the Syracuse program, because this is 3 now. And 3 big ones, it feels like, for the Orange. So we'll get to that in just a second. But first, got to tell you about one of the few things in life that just is not fun to talk about. It's excessive sweating. You know, when you're sweating through your shirts for no reason, it can be pretty embarrassing, right? I remember Syracuse walking to class in the August months. I mean, you're sweating pretty good then. And some of you know that this can be a real problem when you're speaking in public. You can't help but sweating through your shirt or whatever. Now, listen, I know this isn't life or death, and there are much worse problems in the world, but let's be honest, in the moment, it feels like the world is collapsing on you. Nobody likes to pit out during an important speech, interview, or God forbid, first date. I'd much rather not worry about it, and that's why I've been using SweatBlock antiperspirant wipes. They just sent me a box the other day. I tried them out. I've been walking around. I went to the Bears game the other day. It was steaming, but guess what? I wasn't sweating because of the
Shout
fact
out
that
Justin Fields, though. He's looking pretty good.
SweatBlock, stronger and more effective than the most clinical antiperspirants. You simply apply it at night before bedtime, go to bed, then the next morning you wake up, wash, and go about your day without worrying about sweat. Guaranteed. I know this will sound too good to be true, but I literally only have to use it once or twice a week, and it keeps me dry the entire time. No more pitting out. No more picking my shirts based on which one will hide the sweat better. You can see Tim's wearing that gray right now. He doesn't need to worry about it because he's got the SweatBlock on. I just chose a blue one today because I like the color blue. But if you or someone you love is dealing with this, you have to check out SweatBlock. Get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com. Promo code locked on, or you can find them on Amazon and CVS. All right, Tim, let's get into more of this Kamari Lands stuff here, because for Syracuse, I mean, it almost feels coincidental. I don't want to blame Syracuse because it doesn't feel like this is a Syracuse problem. I don't know about you, but the way that it's gone about, it almost feels like Syracuse has been the victim of new territory with all of these decommitments. And of course, we think of the three big ones now, right? Darius Baisley, Dior Johnson, and now Kamari Lands. Darius Baisley, you cannot blame Syracuse for. That was just an unparalleled, unprecedented sort of territory that Syracuse just really on the wrong side of history for, right? Now you think about, okay, Dior Johnson. That was when we were starting to get the buzz that, okay, NIL is probably going to happen. The fact that there was a global pandemic going on may have played a little bit of a factor as well. And the fact that, hey, you might even be able to go pro right away out of high school too. So it's tough to blame that. And Jim Boeheim has pretty much said, like, hey, we never accepted him as a commit. So you can take that for what it's worth too. And then now you've got this one with Kamari Lands, and this kind of just feels like the normal one. He just flat out decommits and is going to pursue other options. And it feels almost too normal.
Tons of similarities to Dior, though, right? Like we talked about this earlier, how he committed out of the blue. There were some rumblings, and I don't know how much of this is fact, how much of this is just rumors, but that the coaching staff was even a little bit caught off guard when he committed. Sort of like we heard about Dior, right? And then he's moving high schools. I think it's a little bit different. Dior moved high schools like it was his job. I mean, that was a total red flag or white flag, whatever. So yeah, it did not strike me as too shocking that Dior decommitted, because he was more of a pro prospect in my mind, and that always seemed like his end goal, and that was always a concern. And we had a Dior meter of, is he actually going to come?
When you've got recruiting analysts saying there's going to be a move named after this guy in reference to Dior, like you're going to have a crossover and it's going to be called the Dior, that's when you know he's probably not going to college, right? Like, yeah, that makes sense.
So to answer your question, I don't think it's a reflection on the Syracuse staff as much of it is just a run of bad luck. Now, some might disagree, and if there's another one, I mean, 3 is a lot, and they've all been a pretty short span of time, so there's something to be said about that. I think if I'm the Syracuse coaching staff, I am sort of evaluating, okay, what are we doing wrong maybe? How can we keep a recruit more? But it just never felt like, in the case of Dior and Kamari Lands, that they were really like, I think they were just surprised that they got them in the first place. So then when it came out of the blue that they decommitted, it just felt like no one really knew what those two were thinking in particular. I guess Dior did do some more Syracuse pride stuff on his Twitter and so forth. And he even publicly said, oh, it's definitely going to be Syracuse if I'm playing college, and left the options open always along the lines of pro. I think Kamari Lands is going to sign a contract to play pro somewhere, or he goes to a school that gives him an NIL bag, which I think we all know those schools. Maybe it's LSU.
Just throw them out there. You know what I think we need to do?
Everyone knows it.
Because listen, this isn't going to be the last time. If history has taught us anything by this point, this will not be the last time that there is some sort of decommitment from the Syracuse program, right? Like we've become sort of accustomed to this now. I think we just start blaming a local business in the Syracuse area because they're not NILing hard enough. Like, Tully's, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get Kamari back here. What's going on, Tully's?
Right.
Dinosaur Barbecue. Help us out.
That does bring up, and I got in this conversation with someone else when in that article he says, I want to reevaluate after NIL became a thing, right? And we talked about, I actually thought Syracuse would be pretty good for NIL, and I thought that they would get a decent amount of following, but I don't know, maybe they're not the best school compared to a Kansas or an LSU or one of those Southern schools. I don't know.
I still think it is. I'm wondering if there is some sort of hesitancy with, and it's not just the basketball program, but the entire university with how we're going to get our athletes into everything. Because right now, I'm trying to think through some of the NIL deals that have been signed for Syracuse. And I feel like Buddy Boeheim's been the big one. I think Joe Girard, but it's all sort of personalized stuff like Cameo and I'm selling shirts. It's not, you haven't seen a lot of the car dealership. The local mom and pop store. You haven't seen, or like, I know this has been a big thing in the South, but the Bojangles and Raising Cane's and stuff like that. You haven't seen those with Syracuse athletes, really.
I do think they need to lean into it more. And maybe
Agreed.
This is something that opens their eyes to that, because you don't want that to be the reason why you lose a recruit. That strikes me as a lazy reason to lose a recruit, as you're not keeping up with the times. You're just not. I mean, you have to be an attractive destination NIL wise, or else schools that are your peers are going to become attractive destinations NIL wise, and they're going to leapfrog you. And you don't want UConn to get a recruit over you, or I don't know, a Baylor to get a recruit over you because they just are better equipped for NIL. They have gotten some players to attach to deals, but you're right. It hasn't been more than just like Buddy and a couple other guys that are doing some little things here or there.
All right, let's take a quick break. And actually, a perfect segue, because it is a great company that has gotten involved in NIL. It's Built Bar. Did you see what they did with BYU? They're like paying for scholarships for people out there for walk-on. So
I didn't see this. That's awesome.
Come help out Syracuse. We could use you because they've got 9 delicious flavors. And when you talk to Built Bar fans like Tim and I, we're passionate about our favorites. I'm the peanut butter brownie. Well, what's your go-to, Tim? I know you've got a go-to in that Built Bar bag.
I mean, it is the peanut butter brownie. So not to just leapfrog with your take, but it's the best one, hands down.
But if you don't like peanut butter, if you don't like brownies, first of all, I don't know what's wrong with you. But if you don't, maybe you're allergic to peanut butter. That's a more valid excuse. But if you are, then guess what? They've got a little bit of something for everyone in terms of Built Bar flavors. They've got 9 delicious flavors, and they've got fruit flavors. They've got chocolate flavors. They've got some other sort of fun flavors like the salted caramel and all that stuff. And they're healthy for you too. Tim and I, when we were down at Pinehurst, Built Bars left and right. You had people asking us for some. We said, all right, you get one. And then I got to cut you off because I want the rest of them. And we had some friends who were trying to get a little deep in our Built Bar bags, and it almost made me feel a little uncomfortable, but they loved them. You could tell they loved them.
Yeah.
They love the health benefits for it because most of the flavors, they only have 130 calories to go along with 17 grams of protein, only 4 grams of sugar, and only 4 net carbs. So order today and get that raspberry, that peanut butter brownie, the mint brownie, whatever you like, you can get it. Go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your first order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your first order at BuiltBar.com.
Well, Ty, it's also that time of year again for football, which is awesome. Back on the gridiron. I know you were at the Bears preseason game. You're getting back into the swing of things.
I've got my Justin Fields buzz going.
Well, you should probably lay a little future on the Bears if you're feeling good about them. And if you want to, go over to BetOnline, the #1 spot for all your pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest. Open now all over at betonline.ag. Just head to their website. You can use a mobile device. You can sign up today, totally free account, and we will get you guys a 100% welcome bonus when you sign up for your free account today. Just use our promo code. That's Locked On. Again, that promo code Locked On, all one word, for 100% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you sign up for your free account today at BetOnline, which is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, from football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait and take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season at BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
All right, I want to kind of dive into a little bit here because I think it's important to start looking at how recruits are looking at Syracuse too, with everything that's going on and the decommitments. And I'm starting to think, if this were college football, is Syracuse almost the Texas, where you have these guys that will want to quote unquote bring Texas back? And you even heard, I think, Dior say it, I want to bring Syracuse back. And for a lot of Syracuse fans, they probably feel like, wait, weren't we in the Final Four like 3 years ago? Like, it was Sweet 16s.
Right.
Do these mean that, like, how are we coming back? But it's a question worth asking when you haven't had the regular season dominance that you had in the early 2010s and the 2000s and that stage of Syracuse basketball, that era. And I was thinking, like, okay, maybe like this is maybe UCLA was the team that people wanted to quote unquote bring back, but this happened with them. Like, the two Ball brothers left, LiAngelo and LaMelo left, and then this past season, Daishion Nix went to the G League Ignite, and he was supposed to go to UCLA, and then they go to the Final Four. So now I feel like UCLA is out of the fold, and now Syracuse is that program that it feels like people want to bring back. And I just don't know if that's a good thing to look at from a recruiting standpoint.
Well, with the exception of Benny Williams, who I do want to say before I get into this take is great, and that's a huge recruiting win, and I think it goes without saying, but we're all very excited about Benny Williams, so there's something to be said about that. But also, with the exception of him, it feels like every elite guy they've gotten, like the McDonald's All-American type players, the high-end 4-star, maybe a 5-star type recruit, every time they commit, there's that fear of, shoot, are they going to go pro? And I don't know if that fear is necessarily
like a Pavlov's dog at this point. Like, you're just conditioned. Oh, top 25 guy, we're screwed.
Yeah, right. So my question is that fear out there at a Duke or a Kentucky as much as it is at Syracuse? And I do feel like it's just really tough for them to get that star player to commit, that 5-star type player. And then also, it seems like it's a challenge to keep them right now. And it feels like the stars have to align to get that star player. And my worry is that maybe a player like a Kamari Lands or a Dior Johnson is looking at the early stages of their recruiting process and saying, oh, I'll commit to Syracuse. That's a pretty decent school, but, you know, I can always go pro after that. I'll commit early. It'll just kind of set me on a course that's in a good direction. It'll help my recruiting probably. And I don't want us to be that school. We're better than that school. And maybe it is because of the lack of regular season success and trying to be that guy to bring Syracuse back, that they're a logical fit for that school. It's disappointing because I feel like Gonzaga and Villanova maybe aren't great NIL-wise, or they're in the same kind of ballpark as Syracuse. But they're getting players and they're keeping them. So does that just go back to regular season success? It might be.
Well, I'm thinking too, you bring it up, and it's almost like, you know how there's that guy who he's kind of in between social groups, and when group tier A in terms of popularity isn't going to hang out with Jimmy, and okay, so Jimmy can just fall back on group tier B. It feels like that Syracuse is becoming group tier B in terms of
which stinks. I mean, we don't want that, and it shouldn't be. Okay,
I can't go pro right away, or I can have pro options. Okay, I'm just going to commit to Syracuse, which everyone knows means I'm still open for business. Like, I'm still able to go pro. I'm still able to go to an upper tier school as well. That to me is kind of the vibe I'm getting. And you don't want to be that friend because, I mean, that sucks. Like, that really, really sucks when it feels like you're being used essentially, because you're like good enough of a program where committing to Syracuse is cool. It's got history. You can post the picture of Carmelo and all that stuff. But at the same time, you're not Kentucky. You're not the G League. You're not the Overtime League. You can't offer that sort of money in all likelihood. And I don't know, like, you brought up the thing about do Kentucky fans, do Duke fans feel this same way when they get top guys? I think the way that those schools feel, they're just worried about guys sucking. They're not worried about them coming. They're worried about, is this guy actually going to pay out? Because we've seen guys come, like I think about at Duke, like even a guy who Syracuse was after, Jordan Tucker. He just flat out didn't work. Kentucky, Johnny Juzang did not work out at first, and then he went to UCLA and has worked out plenty. Think of UNC. I think a lot of UNC fans would say they are disappointed with what they've gotten out of a guy like Armando Bacot. And that to me is that's their worry. Syracuse's worry is this guy actually going to follow through with his commitment? And it's kind of a scary place to be in, but it's one that you can definitely change the narrative of.
I also feel like it's not a Syracuse problem. It's an anyone but Duke or Kentucky problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's just the nature of where we're at.
Guys decommit all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there were like 3 this week from big schools that decommitted.
Look at Amani Bates commits to Michigan State, decommits. Now it looks like Memphis. Maybe that's going to be official soon.
I mean, look at Kofi Coburn. Like the dude went to Illinois, then entered the NBA draft, then entered the transfer portal. Then I mean, people effectively committed to Kentucky.
Right.
And boom, he's back in Illinois. Like,
yeah. That's not shocking that he went back to Illinois. If you had your Illinois sources, you would have seen that one coming from a mile away. You just got to be more tapped in, I guess. But
Alan Griffin knew.
No,
Alan Griffin knew.
Alan Griffin probably did know. I think where we're at right now in college hoops, my one concern is that it's becoming all about the money, right? Everyone wants to, because there's so many ways for a talented 18, 17-year-old kid to get money now. They can go to a number of different leagues. We'll see how this overtime league pans out, but it seems like they're getting some decent players. I do feel like college basketball is still going to be the main attraction. It's still winning. I feel like the G League Ignite thing is going to fizzle out now that there is name, image, likeness. You're seeing Amani Bates is a perfect example. He's going to play college hoops, and I believe he can't even go one and done based on him reclassifying because he won't be draft eligible. But still, he wants to play college hoops. He thinks that's his best course of action. Jalen Duren, same thing. Like, there's a lot of elite level recruits that are still picking college. But if you're Syracuse, so much of your appeal was we have 30,000 fans in the Dome. They have to make their pitch more about money now. They have to lean more into NIL, I think.
And this is going to be one of those things where the steamroller is going to come across college sports and it's just going to level everything out. At some point, everyone's going to be working at somewhat of the same level of playing field. I mean, not every school is going to be able to offer the 7-figure deal. There's going to be an elite group, but for the most part across college sports, there's going to, whether it's regulations, whether it is governance of it all, however it plays out, I do believe at some point the playing field is going to level to a certain degree because it felt like before there were the schools that got away with it and there were the schools that did not. And now it feels like now that it's out in the open right now, it feels like at some point it is going to level out and people are just going to learn and educate themselves on what the best way to do it is, really.
It does feel like the rich will get richer, though, in my opinion. I think we're seeing that already. Like a school like Memphis is probably very well equipped to succeed during this time period, and LSU, it feels like if you're leaning into name, image, likeness, you're gonna see some dividends here. And I worry that Syracuse, I mean, I feel like they're doing some of it. It's just Jim Boeheim's not gonna really make that a main part of his job. He's been around for too long. He's probably not all that concerned with it. And that's why, there was talk that maybe that would lead to him retiring because Roy, I think that definitely played a factor. Coach K, them stepping down. It's such a new time period. They're having to navigate new eras. And Boeheim's done that several times. I mean, he's been there 40 years and he's done just fine, or more than 40 years, obviously. So he'll probably figure it out. The staff will figure it out. I just don't want them to be behind the rest of the curve because if you are, that could really hurt you. And I'm not saying that's the only reason they lost Kamari Lands. And I don't really think this is a true reflection of the staff needs to change things up altogether because it does feel like Dior and Kamari were just the type of players that could decommit and there was nothing they could do about that. And the Darius Baisley, as you said, that was after signing day and that was terrible timing, but it was nothing they could do about it. He gets an offer that no one else is really getting at that time.
One last thing, and we brought this up with our buddy Matthew Gutierrez, who, by the way, will be on the show later this week. Probably Thursday or Friday we'll have him on to talk about Kamari Lands, Peach Jam, all that sort of stuff, Syracuse recruiting, maybe a couple of football nuggets too. We were talking about this. Is this the most fired up you've seen Q's Twitter in August? And I thought back through my Rolodex of memories here from some August stuff that had happened. I think recently, specifically, there was the football jersey buzz when Syracuse became the Syracuse Browns. There was the Torian Thompson stuff, I believe, happened in August. And then Andrew White III committing. But I would probably put this maybe slightly below the football jerseys, because I feel like people got really irrationally excited for that. And then it ended up being a 5-7 season to follow.
Yeah, I think the football jerseys was a fun day. I remember that pretty vividly. But one was Quad A green, because this had similar vibes to that. I don't know what time period.
That may have been like September, October. Because I feel like
I think it was during the season.
Up. Yeah.
Right.
Or it was right before signing day.
Yeah. So it was later on. So August, I mean, this might take the cake, but this one had similar vibes, unfortunately, to Quad A green. That was a sad day. I don't really look back on that day too fondly, unfortunately.
Oh, man. All right. Well, hopefully the next time we're on, we're not talking about another decommitment. But we are going to continue to flesh out some thoughts on Kamari Lands tomorrow on the show as well. If you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, feel free to tweet at us at @LO_Syracuse and subscribe to us on YouTube. We're new here, so we'd love to get some of your participation talking all about it here. All things Orange with you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. You'll catch us here. You'll catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. It's all for free. Only place to get daily SU pods. Also, we've been doing the series, the countdown, positional preview countdown for Syracuse football. We're just going to double up one day during the week, so be on the lookout for that. Defensive backs this week. Very, very, very intriguing positional group. So we will do that with you guys later on the week. So for Tim,